Hello, beautiful people and wrestling fans. Be Kind review number 2. Been a long time coming. I need to knock out. I'm a hair behind knocking out this week's full disclosure, so I may record that right after, but I wanted to go ahead and do the Be Kind review. What am I going to be reviewing? I'm going to be reviewing the best thing that Dave Meltzer has written in a long time, in my opinion. I'm going to review my general thoughts about the Tapped Out Wrestling podcast. I listened to a couple of them. And I'm going to review. This is interesting to me. Velvet Jones, erstwhile wrestler, now actor, put up clips of a scene that he did in a movie, and I'm going to review that too. And finally, for the big closer, I'm going to review the Ricochet sex tape. Oh, let's get right into it. Knock this one out. Okay, what is the best thing that Dave Meltzer has written in a long time? It was about AEW, and it was sent to me by somebody that I know, and it inspired me to want to read more about what Dave Meltzer has written about AEW. Look, if you want proof that AEW is for real, the Dave Meltzer thing sort of cinches it, and he's clearly inspired. Now, does that mean that he might be clouded in his judgment? He may be giving them too much credit? I don't think so, because part of the reason that I think it's so well written is because he puts the AEW accomplishments, selling out these shows so quickly, the ticket sales, the pay-per-view buys, all these things that I wanted to know about Double or Nothing and All In and all the rest of the stuff going on, and the choice of the Las Vegas venue. He puts it in context so well, and I think Dave Meltzer, especially when it's come to pro wrestling in the last few years, he sort of, his lack of interest in a lot of pro wrestling is obvious, and it affects his writing. It's inevitably going to affect his writing. And people want to call it a dirt sheet, and they say Dave doesn't matter anymore. Here's my review of people who say that Dave Meltzer doesn't matter anymore. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Period. Dave Meltzer has broken more stories. Dave Meltzer has shaped wrestling overall for the better. And what he writes about AEW is really great. I really encourage you to go out of your way to read it. I can't really put a link to that stuff because you need to pay to view it and that kind of thing. But honestly, you can find most of it around, and I highly encourage you to do it because if you're a big AEW enthusiast, you'll love it. If you're somebody who doesn't quite get why AEW's such a big deal, read it so you can have a little context just on how amazing the accomplishment is with no television. I can't emphasize that enough. And how a lot of AEW is about a response to a negative backlash to WWE that's been sort of fermenting for years and years and years. Just really great stuff. Dave Meltzer is clearly invested, and when he's invested in something, nobody writes better about wrestling. Dave Meltzer's obituaries for wrestlers are the best. Though I will say, I took a look at Mike Moonahan's. I guess you get a little bonus review here. Mike Moonahan's obituaries are fucking great too. So shout out to Mike Moonahan. They are really good. I love Dave Meltzer's. I have the tributes books, and I go out of my way whenever somebody prominent has passed on to have the people that I know who do subscribe to the Observer send me stuff, and I just love reading them. So there you go. Bonus review of Mike Moonahan and pointing you in the right direction of what you should be reading from Dave Meltzer as of late. Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. Boy, it's here's my ultimate compliment. I don't really listen to podcasts, even the ones that people love, or people are going, you got to listen to Bruce Pritchard's and you got to listen to Jim Cornette's. I listen to them in fits and spurts, mostly stuff that winds up on YouTube in like little sound bites, you know, or little like when they cover one little subject for like 5 or 10 minutes. I'll listen to that. I honestly can't listen to that shit, man. I'm just not interested. I know that's blasphemy, right? I'm just not a guy who listens to a lot of podcasts about pro wrestling. I'll listen to just about a podcast about just about everything, and if I ever put up a list of the podcasts that I listen to, you'd probably be pretty shocked. But pro wrestling is something I generally don't want to hear about. That being said, I will probably regularly check out the Tapped Out Wrestling podcast. I liked it a lot. The one thing that I didn't like, and I'm just going to talk about the one thing I didn't like most prominently, and I will just say overall, listen to it. One of their voices is great. The other one I can tolerate. That's pretty mean. It's the truth, though. When they're organized, they're the most organized out of sort of the local-ish wrestling podcasts that I've sort of checked out, and they move from one thing to another effectively. They seem to have an innate sense of when to move on subject-wise. I haven't listened to, one of them did a podcast with Gary Lamb, the whatever they're calling it, the Blow Yourself and Say How Great We Are show. I haven't listened to it yet, though I no doubt will. And by the way, I'm going to review another 60-minute Broadway sometime in the future, but I kind of wanted to cover all these guys doing it one at a time. And that means I got to get on these be kind reviews a little more frequently. But Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, the one note that I have, to put it in theatrical terms, the one note that I have is, man, it takes them a long time to fucking get into it. My Lord, you know, between thanking all of the people that support them and the wrestling fans that they've met, I just got to be bluntly honest. I don't give a fuck. I know it's better for your listeners. I know it encourages people to listen to your thing because their name might be mentioned or whatever the reasoning is, but my God, stick it in, because that foreplay of just talking about different wrestling people who help, or wrestling fans who help support or listen to you and stuff, it's fucking terrible. And if I hadn't already committed to listening to the whole thing, and I'm glad I did, like I said, it's going to be a regular part of my rotation. If that's always going to be a regular part, and it was in the two that I listened to, fuck, man, I would have just stopped cold dead in my tracks, and I was like, I just can't listen to this shit. Or I'm just going to start at the 5-minute mark or whatever, which means I'm going to miss some important setup stuff in the beginning. I really hate the fucking talking about individual fans. I don't really give a fuck. I realize I'm in a sort of unique position where I'm able to say that. Obviously, I am not beholden to anybody, if that isn't completely obvious in my videos by now. Like, you know, I don't have to pretend that Rodney West is somebody fucking worth listening to. But Gary Lamb, even the mighty Gary Lamb, and everybody else has to. Everybody has to pretend Rodney West knows what the fuck he's talking about, and he's this smart, clever guy who really knows a lot about wrestling. Holy fucking shit. Am I glad I'm not beholden to anybody like that? God, fucking shoot myself. Moving on. Velvet fucking Jones is seen in the movie. Okay, I have to be honest about something. He linked me to it, right, on Facebook, so I would watch it. By the way, is that smart to do? Yes. Do I encourage people whenever they write anything about wrestling, or they have a podcast, or they have something to do with pro wrestling, to send it to me so I will give you a review? Fuck yeah. You know, there's wrestlers who privately send me promos, like, what do you think about this? Or they'll send me a match. By the way, I have a Patreon if you want me to look at your stuff on the regular. Obviously, if you're a friend of mine, that's a whole different thing. But check out the Patreon if you want me to review privately your matches to help you get better. Anyway, getting back to it. Velvet scene in the movie. I'm going to be honest with you. I was salivating to watch this thing for a negative reason. I thought it was going to absolutely blow, and then I would get to tear it into little pieces. Because let's be honest, it's fun to watch me tear shit apart and ruin shit. Fuck, Velvet was the best thing in the clip, by far. And that's not really a diss towards the others. But the others who I would garner are actors with certainly more experience than Velvet Jones weren't nearly as good as he was. Now, it helps that he was the most dynamic and he was the one the scene centered around and he was controlling the scene. But fuck if he didn't control it. And he was the best thing in the scene. He was fucking good. You know, as the dude fucking getting his money, but he doesn't really want his money. He's really using it as control. Like, I got all of that. And his performance was stellar. And his fucking voice is perfect. And the intensity is there. It made you proud as a wrestling person to see a wrestling person apply what they did as a performer, but turn it way up and do not only survive in another medium, but do well. So kudos to him. It's fucking worth checking out. You should check out Velvet Jones's shit. Honestly, his thing and the cinematic choice to have the lamp falling as the woman fell were the two best things in it by far. And not saying it was bad otherwise, but Velvet did himself proud, and it was fun to watch. I watched it more than once, put it that way. I was like, holy shit, let me go back and watch that again. Holy crap. I dare say, if he ever performed as a wrestler again, it would be nice to see him play a character that was fucking turned way the fuck up like that guy was, and see what he would do with it. It would be more compelling, I think. That's how good he was in the acting thing. He's obviously taking it seriously. He's obviously taking classes. He's obviously applying himself. I think, like, you know, I think about Batista. I think when Batista was going to get into movies, I bet people thought that guy's going to suck. And Rock as well. I don't know. But Velvet, Batista, and The Rock share one thing definitively in common, which those are guys that have worked very hard in the gym. And I think that's not that translates to being a good actor, but I think it translates work ethic wise, and guys who understand that things change and improve slowly over time if you continue to work at them. And if he applies that same work ethic to acting as he did to his own working out, and I think Velvet is, he's going to be great. So that was a nice surprise. That's our nice surprise review of the week. Check out Velvet's shit. The Ricochet sex tape. Holy fucking shit. Okay, here's my review of it. I found it to be a penetrating performance. Penetrating. You know, I think, obviously I'm having some fun with it, as he apparently was. You know, Ricochet is an amazing physical performer in the ring, right? But the knock against him, especially from the old guard, is that he doesn't sell enough and he doesn't do the little things like, you know, facial expressions. Let me tell you, in this tape, he sells like crazy. He sells everything, and his facial expressions are right on point. So kudos to Ricochet. You know, and another thing about you got to give Ricochet credit for is, you know, he's made it to the WWE, and maybe his push hasn't been the best. His push. However, no one can accuse him of having his head up his ass about it, and maybe his fingers. Maybe we've seen too much. Maybe. By the way, speaking of fingers in the ass, I've heard that there's a number of Georgia wrestlers, male wrestlers, who enjoy such a thing, which is certainly their prerogative. But I just find that interesting that that's like a common theme that has popped up as women tell me things about the wrestlers that they've been with and that kind of thing. But, you know, which wrestlers are they? I'll never tell. Except I might. Who knows? Anyway, this has been Be Kind Review 2. Electric Boogaloo.